Hello and welcome to the How Platform. This is the How Platform. On this table, we learn, we grow, we become, and we win. My name is Yewande, and in today's video, I'll be sharing some values that helped people rise and shine. In life, not many who live rise. Not many who rise shine. Not many who shine levitate. And not many who levitate become accomplished in their area of calling. When it comes to shining, darkness is key to shining. Light is a key element of shining. The position is very, very important, and you shine in front of the right audience. You shine in front of the right audience, which means how you treat your audience matters. You have to arise and share value. You have to be creating some kind of value for you to be able to shine. So when you're talking about rising or shining in any space, it is very, very important to know that we walk by faith, we rise by courage, we shine by confident alignment to light, we soar by grace, and we all levitate by the power of God. So in today's video, I want to be very, very specific on what I want to eat when it comes to value. Because when you start rising by courage, some audience are going to be drawn to you. Some people will start coming into your life. Some of them are going to be collaborators who will be standing next to you side by side. Some of the people that will be coming into your life are going to be mentors who are ahead of you, who are going to be providing guidance and providing advice on how to navigate that uncharted territory. And then there are some other audience that will be coming to you, people who are going to be behind you, who are watching you, who want to see you win, who are the supporters, who are watching you, who are learning from you. You can call those people your mentees. People who are following behind you and want to see how you are going about what you're doing. So there are a cloud of audience around you. There are cloud of audience right by your side. There are cloud of audience that are ahead of you. There are cloud of audience coming behind you. And another cloud of audience that you don't want to miss is the audience that is above you. That is the one that is calling the shots. The God has given you that position, who has given you that platform, who has given you that gift to be able to shine with. How do you shine your way out even in front of this right audience? So you shine in front of the right audience, and that's the most important thing when you want to know the right audience is you want to understand your value. And when I mean your value, there are several ways you can define a value. So people, when they said, oh, I value you, they can be saying, I respect you, or I honor you, or I regard you in high value. In economics, when we describe value, value could be like the satisfaction that people gain from an experience, or the satisfaction that people gain from a good. You know, in economics, we call the value that you derive from a good or service as your utility, like what you are getting from it. And the utility and the value that people are getting from a particular good or experience will determine the price of that product. So you want to keep in mind that your value could be the effect that you're generating to others. And your value could also mean your principle, the system that supports your choices and your decision in life. So the value that I'm talking about today, you're going to think of it as the first one, the first part. I mean, the value that you generate on others and how you value things. So how you value things, how you regard things. So what is value? So when you think of value, value is the regard that you give to something. Value is the regard that you give to something, is the worth or the importance of something to you. Value is sometimes subjective because it depends on you. What you value could be different from what I value. value is very subjective because it depends on who we are and how we view the world. So our value, there's a value that is like a code that is set within us that kind of controls how we view our environment, how we view the world, and how we view people. And there are also some set of values that drives the way we regard something. So value is the usefulness of something. So when you say something is valuable to you, that means that thing is very useful. It's very, very important to you. It's very meaningful to you. It's very, very key to your existence. So when people say they value something, that means that thing is very, very important. So value could also mean a person's principle or standards of behavior or one's judgment of what is important to them in life. I know I'm dropping a lot of words here, but you want to think of understanding value as key to recognizing your position for shining, as key to making impression on the audience that you have gathered. Like I said, as you continue to rise by courage, you are going to be gathering some audience. This audience are different set of people who like you or who enjoy or derive value from your goods or from your service or from the effect that you generate on them, and what they are drawing value from could differ across these people. So you and an individual, you're rising up by courage, but the impact that you're generating on different people is different, and because of that, they derive different values from you. Very positive one we are talking about in this case. So when you are rising up by courage and you are taking up those courageous tasks and you are making those courageous moves, just like David, when he started fighting, he started gathering all these different audience. People were connected to his pains, people were connected to his values, people were connected to his military capability. Values drives people to you. So you're going to get some people who will be standing by your side in your audience, and there will be some people who will be behind you, who will be cheering you on. Those are like your mentees. Those are like people that are following you and will want to continue to see you as their leader. They want you to continue to provide that leadership. And then another set of people are those who you are following, those who are ahead of you, and you are watching them and learning from them. And then another cloud of witness that we don't want to disregard when it comes to value is God. So when we're talking about David rising from the cave of Adullam, we saw in that 1 Samuel 22 that when David moved to this cave, it wasn't an easy decision for him. David, after conquering Goliath and moving around fighting for Saul, so after conquering Goliath, David became somebody that was very, very respected in the society, in the sense that the common people, they came to acknowledge David for his military might and they started praising him. That got him an attention with Saul. Saul brought him into the palace and David became one of the soldiers that Saul would send on military assignments. So because David rose by courage, he started getting an audience with Saul, and Saul started sending more these assignments. But at some point, David found out that Saul was not only sending more those assignments to kill him, Saul was physically after his life because several times he would want to hurt him. David had to run for his life, and that was how he got into the cave of Adullam. In the cave of Adullam, set of people came to him. Those include his other soldiers who have been working with him, who we call the strong men of David. They came along with him into that cave. Another set of people that came along with him into that cave were his family. David's brethren, his brothers, and his parents, they came to him in that cave of Adullam. And those who were depressed, those who were going through pains, they joined him in the cave of Adullam. So now when you come to audience, when you've gathered this audience, people who are drawn to you either by blood because they are connected to you as a family, people who are drawn to you either because of your skills or your capacity or the values that you generate on them, people that are drawn to you for one reason or the other. How do you leverage this value to rise? And that is the focus of today's video. When it comes to using value to rise, the first person, the first personality that you have to value when it comes to audience is God. You want to make an impression on God. You want to give God a good impression. You want to make him your number one. We saw for David, God was his number one. In the book of Psalms, David said, as a deer panteth after water, so my soul pants after you. He said, in the morning, early in the morning will I wake up and cry aloud, you will be my God. That was David. God was his priority. When the situation became bad with his relationship with Saul and he was in the run and was running for his life, the first place that David ran to was the temple. That was the first place. When he ran from Saul, the first place that he ran to was the temple. You know, there are things that happen to us in life and we are devastated and we feel hopeless and it looks like the situation is impossible. It's so grim that it looks like there is no solution. When those situations happen, make sure they meet you in the presence of God. When you are overwhelmed, and I think I'm quoting David again, he said, when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher. When everything seems complicated and you don't know what to do, make sure God is your number one. Value God. And how do you value God? How do you show that you value God? You know, when it comes to value, value is something that you want to make sure you understand very, very well, that the way you value God is different from the way you value people. However, we can learn more on how to value God by the way you value others, by the way you value people. We saw for David, he showed that he valued God by the way he speaks to God. He doesn't just talk to God like a master to servant. He talked to God like a father, like a friend. No wonder the only father that Jesus was called to is, they call him the Son of David. David knew that God has to be valued in a very special way. You know, valuing God in a very special way also will drive you to service. The way you value God will also determine how you talk about him. When you value something, you love that thing. And when you love something, you talk about them in a very special way. And that is how, when you value God, the way you speak about God is going to be different. It's going to be special. When you are in a room and people are talking about God in a demeaning way, there is a way you rise up and you speak on behalf of God to promote him as your father, to highlight what he has done for you. You know, when we value God, it's not the way we shout Jesus, Jesus. You know, sometimes when we see a scary dream, you say, Jesus, Jesus. That is not, you can shout Jesus, Jesus and not value him in your heart. Who takes the most important place in your heart? Value God means that the time, the treasure, the way you speak about God shows how much you value him. The way you spend your time on things that pertain to God shows how much you value him. The way you speak about God shows how much you value him. The way you spend your treasure on the things of God shows how much you value him. You know, I recently heard a story about somebody who passed and they gave some of their estate to the church of God. The way we value God will determine how we treat God and the things that are of God. That includes the church of God. That includes the people of God. That includes the service to God. That includes the things that pertains to God. Value God. Value God. For you to rise, and we're not just talking about rising for temporary. Our goal is not only to rise, but to sustain it. Our goal is to rise and to maintain it. Our goal is for us to be able to rise and shine, because star dies. Star dies. When a star dies, they become hard coal. They become so dark, you would never even see any traces of light in them. When we value God, we continue to maintain that heat, that power, that light that will continue to fuel our shining. That is why you should value God. The second area that I want you to note about giving value is that you want to value principles, because principle guides life. The law of sowing and reaping cannot be eradicated. The law of season and times cannot be cancelled. It cannot be ignored. There is a time and chance for everything. Those are laws and principles. The laws and principles that guides life are very, very important. When you see people who disregard principles, those are people who disregard life and the mechanism that drives life. Because within principle, we find structure. So principle are what provides the foundation for structure. When you talk about the structure of a thing, the structure of a thing are built around the principle that supports that thing. The principle are the strong mindset around a topic or around a subject. So when people have principle on a topic, that would support the way they view that thing and their perspective on that subject. So principle informs the structure of something, and that structure of that thing informs the function, and you can't talk about the function of a thing without talking about its purpose. And the purpose of a thing informs the protocol that support that thing. And that protocol is what informs the framework that thing or that structure continue to operate. So when you see people who don't pay attention to principles of life, those are people that are not likely to succeed in anything or in any area. But because principle guides life, and there are principles in life that you cannot ignore. The law of gravity, that whatever goes up comes down. Those are laws that guides life. So if you decide to jump up and think you can't come down, that is totally untrue, because there is a law that is supporting that principle. So when you want to think about all these principles that we have covered on the Our Platform, we've talked about 10 key principles that you want to keep in your mind for you to be successful in life, for you to be successful in ministry, for you to be successful in business, for you to be successful in your career, for you to be successful in parenting. The first principle that we covered was the principle of clarity. Clarity comes when your eyes is full of light and your ears are full of the truth. You want to know where you are going. Clarity is a key principle. We covered the principle of courage. We covered the principle of commitment. Commitment to something. Commitment is what kicks in when motivation ends. Commitment is what kicks in when the energy to run is not there. Commitment is a key principle. We covered those principles in our first season on the Our Platform. You can go check all of them out. We covered the principle of communication, how to ask questions, how to answer questions, how to know when to communicate, the power of silence, the power of quietness, the power of solitude. We covered the principle of calmness, how to stay calm, be still and know, be still and rest, be still and see. Because in your calmness, you build self-awareness. In your calmness, you are able to identify your strength. You are able to see your weaknesses. So paying attention to all these principles are key to shining in any area. The principle of discipline, the principle of being hardworking, the principle of being courageous to shine. Because we continue to see for David, after all this audience came to him, he had to be courageous. He had to stand up against Saul. He had to decide on what to do to be able to overcome the challenge and the confrontation that was coming from Saul. He was calm. He went to that cave, because within that cave, he was able to find himself. Because we develop in our loneliness. We grow more in our loneliness than when we are in the crowd. When there is so much noise, there is so much distraction. But when we are calm and we are by ourselves, we learn more about ourselves and we are able to grow. even more. And that was what we saw for David. David was in this cave of Adullam. It was a dark period. It was a dark cave. But we all know that things grow in the dark. When you plant a seed of corn, it goes down, it dies there before you start seeing the offshoot of the corn. When a baby is inside the womb, it is dark inside the womb, but that is the environment that allows the baby to grow, that allows the baby to mature to the point where it can be able to live outside the mom. Growth happens in the dark, and paying attention to the principles of life is very, very key. Calmness is a key principle. We cover the principle of relationship, community, understanding people. And that ties down to the next thing that I want to talk about when it comes to shining and rising to shine. You want to value people. You want to value people. When people are coming to you, you want to value them. Like I defined initially, value is the regard you give to something. Value is the respect that you give to something. You know, when it comes to the parent-children relationship, respect is what you give to your parents when you are under their roof. But when you leave their roof, honor is what you give to your parents. So you want to value people. How do you value people? You value people by the way you talk about them, by the way you do things for them. That was what we saw for David. After he saw all these people came together to meet him, first we saw David, he quickly took his family, his parents, he quickly went to go and hide them in a city where he knows that they will be safe from any harm, from any attack that can be coming from Saul. The people, his family, quickly got out of the town because they knew that if Saul was after their son, if he can't find their son, he's going to come after them. So his family knew that the best bet is to be around David. So the family went to go and join David in that cave of Adullam. And as soon as they got to the cave of Adullam, we saw David, he took them to Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, I want my father and my mother, I'm begging you, let them stay here in Moab. Moab is a city of the enemy, but he begged the king, I want my family. When you want to talk about honoring people, you want to prioritize, you want to come up with a priority list. The way you value your parents is different from the way you value your children. The way you value your children is different from the way you value your spouse. Everyone comes with its own different value because the love language of everyone is different. So you have to understand people and understand the love language that speaks well to them and speak to that. Value people. Honor people. Honor people in the way you speak about them. Honor people in the way you speak to them. You know, sometimes when people are talking about people, they talk about them in a very nonchalant way. When you want to talk about your spouse, there's a way you speak about your spouse that makes people respect your spouse and also makes them respect you. Value is very, very important. Value people. The people that comes to you, you want to honor them with the way you speak about them. You want to honor them with your treasure, the way you give to them. We saw for David, as soon as he left this place and take care of his parents, we saw him going into temple and getting bread from the temple to take care of the soldiers that were around him, to make sure those soldiers are well taken care of. Value people. Value boundaries. You want to pay attention to boundaries. When people talk about boundaries, many people don't fully appreciate boundaries because they don't fully understand what it means to set boundaries. Boundaries are essential. In relationship, we need to respect and know our boundaries. It is not every information that you are given that you have to share. It is not every information that you are privy to that is for you, that you are privy to that you can share before asking the owner of the information. You have to know boundaries. You have to respect boundaries. That was what worked for David. David quickly realized as soon as Saul was after his life and he realized that he was after his life, he quickly changed the access to him. You have to respect boundaries, honor boundaries, and know access access, the access that you want to give people, access should depend on the value that people bring into your life. Immediately, David realized that Saul was after his life. He reset that access. He quickly withdrew himself from Saul. You want to value boundaries. You want to value boundaries. Set boundaries for yourself and respect it. Once you start setting boundaries for yourself and respecting your boundaries, you will realize how easy it is for you to set boundaries that others would respect. For my own self, I try to tell my kids, I try to tell them, oh, this is what I could do. I don't think I will be able to do this because that would leave me with no time to rest or to be able to exercise. When I tell my kids about boundaries, I'm teaching them to also respect their own boundaries too. Boundaries are very, very important because you remember we shine in our position, and that position means there is demarcation. When God set up in that Genesis 1:1 and said, let there be light, and he separated that light from darkness, there was boundary. And that boundary defined the demarcation of light from darkness. So that light knows that from this social time and social time, I am shining. From this social time and social time, I'm giving space for the moon to shine. Boundaries makes our life simple and easy. Value principle, value people, value boundaries, because we shine in our position. We don't shine in others' position. That means you have to understand geography. Everything about value is about geography. You need to understand geography and know your position. Because when you know your position and your audience, you will not be dispelling your energy anyhow. You will know the people that you are generating positive values on, and you will continue to play to respecting those people and to bringing them the value that they need from you, because you shine in front of the right audience. And because value determines the price that people pay for your goods, you want to make sure that those who value you are the ones that you are playing in front, that you are servicing. So the last area of value that we mentioned in today's video is that you want to value time. You want to value your time. You want to value others' time. You want to value your time. You want to value others' time. You want to value the way you spend your time, the way you allocate your time. Because our time is our life. When people pour their time into you, they are pouring their life into you. When people pour their words into you, they are pouring their time into you, which means they are pouring some of their life into you. So, you want to value time. In today's video, I've covered the areas of values that are key to rising and shining in either your career, business, or in your personal developments. The first area of value is that you want to value God. You want to make God your number one. You want to make sure God is impressed before any other person is. The second area of value that I've noted is principles. The principle of clarity, the principle of communication, how to communicate effectively, the principle of calmness, the principle of relationship and community. You want to value principle because principle guides life. You want to value people. You want to value relationship, key relationships in your life. Honor is the currency of value. When people talk about favor and talk about favor, favor is merited and honor is the currency of favor. And the last thing I said is that you want to value boundaries. You want to respect boundaries and set boundaries for yourself. Respecting boundaries and setting boundaries for yourself means that you're going to say goodbyes. It doesn't mean that you hate people. It just means that you are neutral and you have given them the access, which depends on the value that they bring to your life or the value that you generate on them. The last value is that you want to value your time. That is my lesson for today. Thank you for joining me on the HowPlatform, and see you in the next video. Please remember to subscribe and don't forget to share it with your friends and with your family. Bye.